So the surprise took place at the De Vere Hotel, where I was staying with my husband, and he told me, because we were doing something in the House of Lords, and I was supposed to be going to a meeting there, and he said, "No, you're coming to a dinner, so you've got to put a dress on," and he didn't tell me what the dinner was, and of course it was "This Is Your Life." So we'd gone back to the hotel to change. So it was actually in the foyer. Oh, I was very surprised. Well, I recall it was very emotional because my nanny, who I simply adored, Norwegian nanny, and she had been with us all through the war until I went to school when I was 11. They brought her over, and that was absolutely wonderful to see her. And that was actually the last time I saw her. And there was a great sadness because my physiotherapist, who would have come over from Australia, who was a huge support when I was at Stoke Mandeville learning to do things again, she had died of cancer, and so that was very sad. Well, I often look back on it and think of some of the people that were there, but one particularly, who is Sir Ludwig Goodman, who is the doctor who founded the spinal units at Stoke Mandeville and spinal units all over the world. And he was an amazing character. I felt very honoured in a way to be one that was chosen. And I think Eamonn Andrews was a huge character himself. I'd met Eamonn Andrews because we adopted 2 children and he also had adopted children, and I'd met him over that. I think it's actually quite an emotional situation because you never know who's the next one that's going to walk in. So that is really very interesting.
Yes, yes.
Our daughter was in bed with it was either chickenpox or tonsillitis, and she sort of spoke down the telephone. It's an extraordinary thing. Television is interesting because sometimes when I've done something on television or said something that I think is quite important, and somebody comes and says, "Oh, I've seen you on telly," and I said, "What was I talking about?" And they haven't a clue. And I always think, well, you're trying to get a message over, but people would stop you in the street and say, "Oh, I saw you on television." I think all programs, and especially in the early days, does make people aware of what goes on because so many people don't really understand. I mean, they probably don't really understand what it's like to be paralysed. That's why paralysed people themselves are very good supporters of each other when they have accidents because they think sometimes that the world has ended, and you have to tell them and show them that there's more to it than just sitting in a wheelchair. One of our first books we wrote was called "So You're Paralysed," and then it showed all the things that you can do, not the things you can't do. You've got to take a positive approach.